Hey guys, Thijs Strootman here, and I am here with my friend Mark Jan from the Netherlands, from MJ Aquascaping.
Hi guys.
And I'm very happy Mark is visiting this week. Spent a couple of days here at my family's house, and went up to Riverwood Aquatics on Tuesday, hung out with Pete, which was really nice. And yesterday we were with George Farmer. We had a nice lunch at his house, and then we went to Aquarium Gardens, where Mark set up an aquascape to really, really nice 60 centimeter tank.
Yeah, it's lovely.
And I did a little 45 shallow, and we had pizza and good conversation and good company
Really had a good
with
time.
with owner Dave and his new staff member Jay, which was really fantastic. I think we came back kind of, buzzing a little bit, right?
For sure.
We were driving in the pouring rain, late night, but we were still feeling really good. And today I'm very lucky because I mentioned earlier that I'm creating this gallery in my sort of studio space here, and I'm doing the tanks bit by bit. The other week I set up my 75p with my friend Steve Baker.
It's looking great.
It needs to fill out, but hopefully it'll be a cool display. And I've got this 60p, and I've asked Mark if he would set it up with me. It's currently a bit of a holding tank. There's some shrimp in here, some slightly tired-looking plants that need love. And we picked up this Chihiros light background on Tuesday from Riverwood Aquatics. So I feel like now I can skate this thing.
We have everything ready.
Yeah, I've got the cabinet came from Aquarium Gardens, and I think it's a Weo 60p, this tank. So it's got a few scratches, it's a bit grubbed up, and I think we can transform it into something really nice. We were talking about the plants that are in here.
Yep.
I was very, very kindly given some of this Eriocaulon, I think it's the feather duster, or needle leaf.
Yeah, it's quite a rare plant, right?
Yeah, by Elias, who's from the Austria Aquascaping.
Mhm.
On Instagram, I'll put his tag on there. I've got my very precious and cherished Nymphea gardneriana.
I love this one.
It's great. It's really unhappy at the moment because I've been moving it around so between all these tanks, and it's currently living in a bowl. And
It deserves my bed.
It deserves better. It's looking a little tired. I've got some Isoetes velata varsicula, which is this thing here, which is apparently grows up to 30 centimeters tall.
I've never heard of this.
Yeah, it's quite a rare plant. I got it from my friend Dan Harding, who works at Wildwoods World of Water,
Mm-hmm.
who we're going to go and see later this afternoon. Should be
Exciting.
nice. I've got some Eliocharis montevidensis. I've got some Helantium angustifolia, which is the very narrow form of the Helantium, quite tall. And we were talking about a sort of quite crisp, slightly grassy, bright display, maybe with some stands of tall plants here and there so the fishes can move between. And the lilies, although I've only got a few of them at the moment, they're a carpeting species. And the idea is that they will eventually form this carpet that's running between all the tall stands of plants. And that's partly inspired by a river that I know in Brazil, River Sucuri, the Anaconda River, where you have these great thickets of a plant called Potamogeton illinoensis.
Mhm.
It's really massive Potamogeton. And through it you have these carpets of Nymphea gardneriana running, creating these corridors, and the fish, I'll show you a photo later. Really, really nice. So that's sort of what's inspired me. Yeah, I've been really itching to transform this into something that doesn't look horrendous right now.
Yep.
And I've got Mark here, who is a very talented aquascaper.
Thank you, mate.
I'm sure a lot of you guys watch his channel. He's excellent with nano tanks, but you do all sorts of things. It's quite nice because we met about 20 months ago in Barcelona when Weo was doing their aquascaping competition and biotope competition.
Yep.
And that was in the Barcelona Aquarium, so it's a really nice venue.
For sure.
And Mark came, and we got chatting. We got to hang out, and then I was in Amsterdam in June, and I went to this exhibition at the Rijksmuseum, the Vermeer exhibition. And Mark saw I was there and was, "Oh, you here? You should come over." I said, "I just don't have time, but you should come to us." And Mark said, "Yeah, okay, when?" We said, "Oh, yeah, late July, okay, oh yeah, come over." So here he is,
Now we're here.
and I'm very pleased
Yeah.
that you're here.
I'm happy to be here, man. I really love your gallery space.
Thank you.
Slightly jealous as well. I wouldn't mind having a space like this for myself. And yeah, I'm excited to see it turn into a beautiful gallery with lots of beautiful scapes.
Thank you. The gallery is my garage, and when I did my book project, my Aquatic Habitats book, I need to plug it. This is where I set up all the tanks for the book and was photographing them. Now I've done that, I'm turning it more into a creative space. With this gallery, there'll be 60 centimeters, 75p. There'll be a 120p, 45p, and a 30. There might be a couple of other tanks in here, including a biotope,
Lots of
beam tank.
lots of content coming.
Yeah. And it's a bit cramped at the moment because I've got to move a huge 1500p aquarium out of here. But once I've done that, this is going to be my space where I'm producing lots of videos, going to be trying to put out content, talking about aquascaping, but also biotopes and natural habitats. And so I'm really pleased that one of the first tanks I'm doing is with you. We talked a bit about the layout.
Yeah.
Is there anything that comes to your mind when you're looking at this? Anything that you would suggest or things you might usually do?
No, I mean a 60 centimeter tank, in my opinion, is one of the best sizes for an aquascape. I mean, yeah, it's good. It's big enough to house a few different types of fish, some shrimp, whatever, and yeah, a good footprint for lots of different plants. A nice hardscape, and I'm just excited to get started, man.
Fantastic. My temptation is always to stuff tanks with as many different kinds of plants,
Yeah,
and I'm already
same here.
thinking
Same here.
I've got some Potamogeton gayi that could go in here, which would look nice and stuff. And sometimes it's a case of less is more, and we want to keep that sort of crisp, bright style to it.
Yeah.
There's a guy, and I've forgotten his Instagram right now, but I will post it as well. Fantastic Japanese aquascaper.
Mhm.
And he does loads of really cool stuff with a 60p.
Yeah.
I was quite inspired by him originally. I showed you a video earlier of the tank that I did in here, where he used things like Potamogeton gayi, very bright green grassy plants to create this really fresh, bright, well lit, lovely display, and it lit up the room. He also used some Persicaria in there to bring some reds
that's
and
nice.
stuff, which is
Love.
really cool. I want that same thing because we were saying this tank, once the stems fill out,
Yep.
it's going to be quite a moody display. It's going to be lots of dense planting, quite vivid, loads of colours, got a lot going on, quite intense in some
This
respects.
is like almost like a classic nature stuff.
Yeah.
Right?
Then
I think this one is going to be much more natural.
yes, a mix of plants, but in a natural layout that's hopefully fresh and appealing. So we're gonna
Should we get started?
let's do it. Let's go for it.
That's a nice clean tank, man.
Yeah, this tank, it's been through a lot. It's got some scratches, got some watermarks and stuff. But once you plant it up, that sort of disappears mostly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it'll be a nice blank canvas for us to work with.
Yeah. So we drained the tank. We caught all the shrimp and a few snails that were in there.
Yeah.
They're currently in a bucket. They will go back. Some of them.
Yeah.
Some of them will go in here as well.
Yeah.
So basically, we're ready to get started, right?
Yeah, with the shrimp, we were talking about the colours. So I've got yellow ones, orange ones, reds, and then I've got sort of more wild colour ones, kind of brown or clear with little brown stripes on. And because we talk about the mood of this tank being quite naturalistic, quite calming, we were saying, well, maybe we will only put in the clear and the brown shrimp in here. The colourful ones can go in the nature aquarium over here, which is a bit more vivid, a bit more going on, to maintain that ambient feel. So even when it comes down to your livestock, even things like shrimp, think about that. It can be really tempting. Oh, I'm going to throw in really colourful, bright shrimp and they're going to pop out. Like, yeah, that can look cool, but that's not the vibe we're going for. We're going for a very mellow vibe. And so I think we're going to just keep the very softly coloured ones in here.
Yeah.
But before we can put anything in, we need to escape it.
Yeah. Are we going to get started with the substrate, or we're going to get started with the hardscape first?
So the hardscape is actually quite limited. It's quite small, and the pieces of wood you'll see with flat base. So I think we can put the substrate in first, and then just put the hardscape. Otherwise, it's going to get overwhelmed by the soil.
Okay.
And I think we need a fairly deepish layer of substrate.
You like to use a lot of substrate, right?
I confess I like a low level at the front,
Mhm.
as minimal as possible, and deep at the back. When I did the one last night, I ended up with like substrate up to here at the front in a shallow tank, but it really helped with the planting.
Yeah, for sure.
There's nothing worse than you're just trying to keep pushing plants down into soil and they keep popping up and you're just like, come on. Yeah, I think that would be the way to go.
Okay. Let's get some substrate in there.
Yeah, let's get some substrate. Do a split down the middle. So it's a bit of an awkward way to pour it, but I'm just going to pour. This is the Tropica soil, sort of larger granule stuff. I'm going to pour into the back.
And you've used Tropica soil before?
For the first time at home in this display, I've used it in shops quite a few times.
Yeah.
With aquarium gardens, for example, and but for myself, I've not used it so often. It's nice stuff. I like the dark look. What do you think's better for the lilies to get their roots into?
I find the deep powder can actually like condense a bit too much.
And become hard for them
Yeah.
to go into.
Personally, I would go for the
Well,
larger grains.
I'm going to listen to you. It's not often that I'm influenced by speaking to the point of changing my mind, but you are someone I listen to. So it's part of it because I find these lilies, particularly the Nymphaea gardneriana, found growing in all sorts of substrates, very silt and muddy sort of clay type substrates and all sorts. But of course, in the aquarium, it's a different world. It's a contained world.
Mhm.
They don't have the ability to pull nutrients as they would in the wild. I'm going to go behind the tank. One of the nice things about this space is I can just about squeeze past. Try not to tread on. Alright, here we go. This is always a nice,
It's very satisfying, right?
satisfying bit, yeah.
Yeah, personally, I'm quite a big fan of the Tropica soil. I mean, I've used a lot of different brands in the past few years, but I find this one to be the most consistent in terms of nutrients. You know?
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I think if you're not doing sort of biotopian, really natural style,
Yeah.
it's also a great substrate just to have, at the front. Doesn't really matter. It's a nice dark colour.
Yeah.
I think obviously some of the other substrates, like the Weo soils, the Weo Ionian and so on,
Mm-hmm.
they're nice if you're going for a particular vibe or theme or a more perhaps authentic, natural looking style.
Yeah.
But if you just want happy, healthy plants, you're not too worried about the colour, I think this is good stuff. And it's like you were saying, it doesn't compact quite so much. I don't know if do we need more in there? Whole bag?
I think this is a good place to start.
Yeah.
And then once we get the hardscape in, we can always
Have a look.
add in a little bit more if necessary. Okay, time for some hardscape. What do we have here, Ty?
I've got these two pieces of structure wood.
Mhm.
This is by Hugo Kamishi, and these were very kindly donated by David Aquarium Gardens, who's sponsored my hardscape for the gallery.
Nice.
And I was picking out two bits with flat bottoms, so they're easy to place.
Yeah.
I've pre-soaked them in my big tank, so they
Nice.
should sink straight away. And I wanted something that would come up from the substrate but not dominate the water column.
Mm-hmm.
The plants are going to do that job here. We have these tall stands, but at the same time I wanted something interesting at the lower levels. And thinking about creating a layout where the sort of plants, the lilies are running between these two pieces,
Yeah, that's gonna look right.
but without being shaded too much. So I was looking for fine branchy pieces. So I guess we can put one
Yeah, let's see how they look.
in. Let's see how. Let's have to lift the light. This one. And then spill water all over the front of the tank. That's what we do. And then this one. Put in here. So I really like kind of the nature of them. There's sort of like there's an old log or something or old root structure has fallen into the water and it's been sort of buried mostly by the substrates and the
Mhm.
build-up of material. And just the tops these bits are sticking out, and you want to create some depth, so you have some further back, some further forward. I don't know whether angling it a bit. It's nice too.
I do like how it looks already.
Yeah. So I think, yeah.
Yeah, I like a little open area in the middle.
I'm hoping that carpeting lily leaves will kind of run through that and out into this open front.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll plant, a stand of tall plants here, a stand of tall plants here, quite close to the front, so you've got that depth, and one here.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got these three kind of areas. And that creates these pillars through which the fish can swim and move, and also your eye can move, and as you walk around the tank you'll see different things and different angles, and little back hidden bits will be revealed.
Nice. Okay.
So that's the hardscape.
You're done already?
Pretty easy, yeah? Pretty easy.
Nothing you want to change?
I mean, do you have any suggestions? Anything you do differently?
We can kind of play around with it.
Yeah.
Try a few different angles and see if we can come up with something different. But I mean, it looks good.
I kind of like it.
If you like it, then yeah, let's move on. Let's move
right.
on to the next step.
Let's keep it simple. I guess the next step might be putting in the remainder of the soil towards the back of it.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're going to do a lot of planting of plants that really like getting their roots down.
Yeah.
And like we said, we don't want the hassle of things popping up
Mm-hmm.
all the time. So we'll just add in more. I was saying to Mark, like I love crypticorn plants, and I wanted to put crypts in every single tank. But then, you lose a bit of the character. So I'm not putting crypts in this display, but I'm putting some of my other favourite plants. So that's okay. There'll be crypts in basically every other tank in here.
Okay, so behind this tank we have your plant holding
Yeah.
tank, right? And this is where we're going to get some plants for this layout.
We'll find some plants in here. This is my
You have a few.
my 1500. There's only shrimp and plants in here, and the idea is that this will come out. I've got this nice futon thing that will go in that space,
Mm-hmm.
and this tank has been good, but it's too big for me really to do what I want to do.
Yeah.
It takes up too much room in here. It's time to scale down and focus. I think I really enjoy it, as you do with your nanos, getting close up to the tank,
Yeah.
face right up to the glass.
Mm-hmm.
Really soaking up what's going on, seeing all the little details, seeing all the little lives being lived. And in the big tank, I can't do that. It's too much. You're looking in too many places at once.
Yeah.
So
what do we have in here that you're going to use?
we're going to use some Polymegeton Gayi. It looks a little rough at the moment. It arrived in the mail yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got some Helanthium angustifolia, which is the taller version of the Bolivianum.
Yeah.
I
So
think
another grass type.
grassy type thing.
Yeah.
I'm not going to use the Vallisneria nana because it just takes over.
It's too much of a weed.
Too much of it.
Although it does look great.
It looks great, but saying that the Gayi is a real weed, but you can just chop it back.
It's a little bit easier to pull out,
And
right?
you can pull out the runners, and there's all sorts of things in here. But
I do love the Balancea, but it's not
Yeah.
fit in this.
Balance is a little large for this display.
Yeah.
I really love my Echinodorus macrophyllus.
Mhm.
It's quite rare. And this is my lovely Epiprimnum amplissimum. And this is the cutting of a cutting of a cutting of the one that grows out the top of Amano's home tank.
That's amazing.
So that's why it's quite dear to me. And I got it from Pete at Reward Aquatics, and it's taken a while, but it's now flourishing. And the Echinodorus macrophyllus, after nearly 2 years, has finally put out a flower space with some daughter plants.
That's really cool.
So I'm quite excited about that. So
Okay.
yeah, we'll take the plants out of here. We've got some other plants in our bucket here, and then we can
Start planting.
start planting. Yeah. going to start by planting Heliocharis montevidensis. This is a plant from Tropica, and mine is a little unhappy because it was basically just being neglected and overgrown by other plants, and it's been moved around a lot. It doesn't like being moved around. It's a really tall, grassy plant, and you can see it'll climb up and out of the water. In the beginning, it'll lay flat. Eventually, as it matures, it will stand up. So I'm going to plant some down here. I haven't got a lot, but I don't want a lot. I'm just using a few to mark out where the planting areas are going to be. And it's a really nice plant, but it's one of those ones that it's best sort of left alone and loved than being moved around too much. Let me set the other planting area down here, near the front. Here. We're going to have another one back up here. So, what do you think, Mark?
Yeah, I think that's good.
Maybe closer or back?
No, like behind that
it,
that little stump.
There's a Potamogeton in here of some Potamogeton. It's a native to Britain. I think it's not Natanz, but something, which was in my pond, and I've got some in the pond, but it does like growing in the aquarium. I've got one strand, so I'm just going to put it in here and see what it does.
Nice.
Got a few other bits of Montevidensis. So Montevidensis is interesting because obviously the name Montevidensis suggests it comes from Montevideo in Uruguay, and it can be found as far south as Uruguay and northern Argentina. It can also be found as far north as New Jersey. So it's all along the east coast of the Americas, and it grows often in salt marshes and coastal pans, estuary type mud flats. It's an interesting plant, and in the aquarium it can be, if you plant it in dense stands, it can be a really nice grassy plant. Actually, that leaf is kind of crap, so I'm going to pull that out. And if you plant it thinly, it's just a nice little accent plant. It's architectural. It climbs up, creates a bit of height in the display.
Yeah.
So this is Helantium angustifolia. This is still quite a rare plant in the UK. It's a taller, slenderer version of Helantium bolivianum. Some people call it Helantium bolivianum angustifolia or var angustifolia. It's quite grassy. It puts out runners. It grows much slower than other Helantiums in my experience, but it looks really nice, sort of flowing in the current and these soft green leaves.
Would this need CO2 as well, or?
It wouldn't need it, but it benefits from it. I got mine from Wildwood's World of Water in Enfield here in the UK, which we're going to later today. Yeah, it's not a common plant. I think it's more often used in Europe on the continent, but I really like it. And it puts out runners, but it's not as rampant as some of the other Bolivianums, which means that you don't spend quite so much time having to thin it out. Now I'm going to plant this Heliocharon feather duster.
Okay.
So my friend Elias, who I'm seeing on Saturday, from Austria, he has given me some of this Heliocharon feather duster. It's really nice. Again, it's not a very common plant in the hobby in Europe. It's used a lot in Japan. And I'm going to blend it in with the other grassy plants. There's really, really fine, long leaves. They look wonderful flowing in the current. And we're going to use it just to add some movement and some diversity to the textures, the sort of width of the leaves. And yeah, he's very generous providing it for me. So
this doesn't send out runners, right?
no, this grows from a rhizome, and it's not fast growing, as I understand. So you can pull them apart. You can see its roots enmeshed, and the leaves really tangle up. You have to be very careful with them, otherwise you end up breaking them off like I just did. and then plant them not too deep because it's a rhizome, you don't want to drown it in the substrate. So we're just putting a few around to create this. I've got some heavy duty tweezers, but I'm being very gentle as I'm pushing it into the substrate. I don't want to damage the rhizome or the roots, especially as this is a rare plant, which is really, really hard to get in the UK. Since Brexit, you cannot get it from Aquasabi in the UK, which you used to be able to do. Another Brexit blessing. I said I wouldn't get political, but here I am. There's a little one here. I like them. I'm really looking forward to seeing how it does in here. I think I'm going to plant the dentist stand of it up here where the filter outlet's going to be, so we get that nice movement. Let's bring it over here. So we've got in here a bit more. Right. Now we can plant the sometimes quite invasive Potamogeton gayi. This has been grown in vitro and sent to me. It often doesn't look very happy when it first comes in. It might be a bit brown. This is a really, really nice plant. It's had a bit of a resurgence recently in the last few years, largely because ADA's used it quite often. And it puts out little runners. It can get a bit invasive, but you can chop them and you can pull them out. It's a really good space filler. Again, it's another plant that looks lovely swaying in the flow. And it grows stupidly fast, like uncomfortably quickly. Bit of a triffid. I got mine from Plantech Labs, who are based in Wales. They do mail order, and I think they're the only UK supplier. One of the reasons I like it is because it grows very quickly and it takes up lots of nutrients. It's really good in a new tank. It provides cover for fishes very quickly, and it looks, once it gets going, it's got this lovely soft pale green leaves. They look really nice. They look really effective, especially when you're using like a light background. And right now, as I said, they look a bit tired, but that will, in a week or so, it'll be a different plant. But yeah, it's good using it in a small tank, because in a large tank, you're going to get tired of trying to thin it out. It becomes too much. And I'm going to plant some pretty much right up against the glass here. So I want to create this sense of depth, these corridors and columns of planting that you're looking through. It's nice to have a cameraman.
You need a cameraman as well.
Yeah, I'm not used to this.
Okay, so we have the Montevidensis in, and we have the Potamogeton in,
And the
Helantium. There's three plants in right now, right?
Yeah.
So moving on to the fourth.
Fourth one.
You have something special again.
Isoetes velata versicolor. And apparently, it can grow to 30 centimeters tall. I've had it for a couple of months, and it basically looks like a very small Liliopsis right now.
This came from an in vitro pot?
This came, I think so, from again from Wildwoods, Wells of Water in Enfield. And Dan, my friend, was like, last time it came in, it was 30 centimeters tall. This time it came in, it's like this. Hasn't grown any taller, but I'm going to plant it in, and we'll see what happens, really.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, it may become quite similar to the Montevidensis, very tall, slightly rigid leaf shape. And if it wants to stay small, I won't hold a grudge against it. That's fine. It can do that too. It grows apparently extremely slowly. In aquarium conditions, it can grow faster in immersed terrariums and so on. I've got a bit, so I'm just going to put it in here, and hopefully under this ADA light and with lots of love and CO2 and all the rest, it should... well, if it doesn't grow here, it's not going to grow anywhere. So that's my final judgment. Yeah, feel it, Mark. It's sort of brittle like Liliopsis. And that's why you can tell it's a marsh plant more than an aquatic plant. But it does adapt. It's a European species, actually.
Yeah. It does indeed look very similar to Liliopsis.
Yeah.
Especially when you buy Liliopsis in vitro, that's kind of what it looks like. What is your plan for the photo period?
So I tend to have my lights on for 7 hours.
7 hours.
Yeah, normally comes on at 2, goes off at 9. And then I have the CO2 comes on 4 hours before at 10 a.m.
4 hours, yeah?
Yeah, but after what Dave was saying yesterday, he was saying some of his tanks, the CO2 comes on at 6 hours before.
Wow.
It's a large tank. But I think on a small tank like this, 4 hours is fine. I should be using drop checkers. I'm very bad at doing that sort of stuff. So I need to get myself some drop checkers and have them in here so that you know that when the lights come on, if the drop checker is the same green as the greenest plant you have, as Dave says, then your CO2 levels are good.
Yeah, I've been there as well, like not using drop checkers, just thinking, just looking at the CO2 thinking, oh, that should be enough.
Yeah.
And then you put a drop checker in, you see that it's like bluish, and like, so that's why I have black-beard algae.
Yes, and why my plants are not growing as I hoped they would. And that's one of those things, like, you'll get out what you put in, like so much in this hobby, and you investing in a little drop checker and some drop checker fluid can be the difference between, success or getting very frustrated that your plants are not growing the way you hoped they would. Spray, they won't dry out too much, but just give them a bit of a spray, and also spray the soil, because now we're going to put the lilies in, and they do not like being planted into dry soil at all. And they've been battered enough, they've been moved around, they've been messed about. So now we're going to use my favourite aquarium plant, which is Nymphea gardneriana, the carpeting water lily. Mine have been messed around far too much. I'll put them under the light. In high light they can go red, in low light they stay green, they can also go oranges and almost yellows. You can see they've really been battered and they're not happy at all. They propagate by small horizontal runners. You can't get them in the UK again after Brexit because of Aquasabi no longer exports them to the UK, and they're normally available from the Aquasabi website sort of once a year for about 10 hours before they're sold out. You were saying you've had them, Mark, several times.
Yeah.
I seem to have the issue where they do really well for a couple of months and then they fade away, and then you sort of lose them, and then it's horrible because you're trying to get hold of them again. But I'm hoping that in this tank they'll thrive. And the other thing I've realised I've got is one tiny and very unhappy Blixa or bear tie that's living in here.
You need to save that one.
Yeah, I'll see if it grows in here. So that may go in here. So I'm going to plant the lilies. And the idea is that eventually they will carpet all the open space that you see.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's going to take a little bit of time, but that's going to look
really, once they get going, they really get going. But they're very delicate, and I love them. But they are a pain. So I'm going to start by planting one right here.
And these like a lot of light, yeah?
They like, but the only time I had success was it in a shallow tank with a T5 unit with 6 T5 bulbs above it. And then they grew very well. But since then, they seem to come and go. You can see there's a tiny little new leaf coming up here, and there's a new plant is appearing here on this little runner. So we're going to pull off the damaged leaves, apart from the very smallest ones, and then the plant can instead put energy into the new growth rather than struggling to maintain the old. Once they get going, they develop these incredible root networks that run all over the tank. Here's a tiny, I've got one with a bulb, a tiny little bulb here, and we'll put that at the front. So the tank in the beginning, it's going to look a bit empty, I think, but once everything starts growing out, it's going to look good. That's my plan.
Just like everything in this hobby, we're just going to need a little bit of patience.
Yeah.
but we're going to be rewarded with something very unique.
Patience and care, and love your plants, love your display, love your creation. That sometimes means being patient. I'm not a patient person. Some people will know. It feels awful pulling off these big leaves, but they're all damaged, so they must go. This tangle of roots, try and make sure that all the roots go in the soil. You can see there's a tiny little runner with minuscule new plant there. So they are, even in the bowl, they've been trying to grow. Bless them. I found them in Brazil in clear water streams, high sunlight, with loads of flow, quite cold water. I found them in really muddy, stinking pools that are just mostly silt and hard. You can't imagine any plants surviving, but they'll grow in there. Hey, so I wanted to show you Nymphaea gardneriana growing in the wild alongside some tadpoles. So you can see the Nymphaea growing through the leaf litter here in a small little puddle. The river is over there, and so there's this sort of muddy bank. Lots of leaf litter from mango trees, and then you can see the Nymphaea growing there and a whole bunch of tadpoles. Very cute. Found them in little creeks. They're quite adaptable. The version that's available in the hobby is the Nymphaea gardneriana Santarém, which is the Amazon variant.
So slightly different from this one.
Yeah, I'm very grateful because these are all the offspring of several plants I was sent by the guys at Tropica, who had them growing in their sort of their lab of plants.
Test lab, yeah.
And I was so excited because I had them in 2017. I'd then gone to Brazil, and while I was away, they died. And when I came back, I didn't have them again, and I was really sort of upset. And they said, "We will send you some." And I grew them, and they did okay. And then I sent them to my friend Adi Myers, who has the wonderful Instagram, Adi Myers, Adi_Myers. I'll post that up. And of course, Adi being Adi, grew them so they got massive and looked amazing. And then he gave them back to me, which was very generous. And all the tall growth melted away and died. And I felt awful. But I think it was a case that they just hate being moved.
Yeah.
He got them to flower in his tank.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was very, very jealous. But he's such an accomplished plant grower. And I can't begrudge him because he's also a really nice guy. So it's hard to be like, that 80 made me look bad. All right, so I think we're ready to fill up. Like I said, it's kind of empty because I haven't got that many of the Nymphaea. When they were flourishing, I gave quite a few of them to friends. Then they really started to die back. But my hope is that this will become the tank where I can propagate them. So eventually all this exposed soil that you see here is going to be covered in a carpet of the lilies. And I think, yeah, we're ready to fill up. So we'll fill it, and then we'll get everything turned on and switched on, and hopefully everything starts beginning the journey to flourishing. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I think it looks very interesting, and like indeed, it's quite minimal in terms of planting right now.
Yeah.
So I'm very curious how this is going to look in a few weeks / months from now.
I'll send you updates.
Let's do a little time lapse.
Cool.
Okay, man. Tank is filled up.
Thanks, Phil.
Water's cleared up.
Exactly.
It's looking good.
There's another ingredient we have to add. We have just come back from Wildwood's World of Water in Enfield, where the wonderful Dan, who works there, Dan Harding, has informed me, and he's been chasing for almost 18 months for me, the Ludwigia inclinata red stem plant that I've been wanting, that I'm very used to working with in Brazil and seeing in Brazil, and he got some in.
So we have another rare plant.
We have another red plant, and we've decided we're going to put it in here, and it'll bring some real colour to this display. I think it'll contrast very nicely with the fine greens. It's going to stand out well against the light background, and it's one of my favourite plants. It is super rare, so I'm really excited to have it. It doesn't travel well. It is hard to get hold of. I've got quite a lot of stems here, so we're going to put that in, and then hopefully it'll take off and we'll have loads of beautiful rich red stems in here.
Yeah, I've seen some pictures. Looks really good. So
yeah, it's a species that I've seen so often in Brazil, in the Pantanal wetlands and in the Taquari River Basin, where black neon tetras come from, and I love it. It's after the Nymphaea gardneriana, it's my second favourite aquarium plant. So we've got a few stems here that are starting to show some of the red. They can go really red, and then the other stems are sort of still a little bit green. But we'll plant it, and we'll see what happens, and hopefully we'll end up with some really lovely dense red shrubs from these plants. So I will plant them because we're about to have dinner soon. Mark has got us some wonderful wine. My mum's made us dinner, and I think we can even sit outside. The sun has come out, so we'll plant this up, and then we'll go and enjoy our meal.